Security Council will shut us down. They have been doing this for the past several years. We want to know when exactly the ICTY will close down in order for discussions to continue on the legacy and the archives of the ICTY.
Thank you. And the third question over there.
My
name is Ivan Zvonimir Cicak. I am the president of the Croatian Helsinki Council committee now, and I was president of that committee during the war. The reasons why there is misunderstanding surrounding the ICTY and the successor states of the former Yugoslavia is the way in which you're conducting this meeting. You are allowing us to put questions to you, but not allowing us to tell you what our opinions are. Please allow us to state our views. I belong to the small nucleus of non-governmental organizations which, before the ICTY was established, on the 6th of December in 1992, had the first meeting, which was held in Sanremo, lobbying for the establishment of this tribunal. Since then, problems have existed which were of linguistic, political issues or character, and that's because the outreach organization held all its documents in the official languages of the court, English and French, and not in the countries of the local communities. You have failed yet to bridge the gap between you and the countries in the region. 70% of the local population perceive the ICTY as something unpleasant that needs to be condoned with. You see today at the religious feasts in the region, it is not the saints' pictures that are being sold, but the pictures of Tudjman, Milosevic and others who were criminals and who should have been tried. This is the wall which still exists between the two sides, which has not been overcome yet. I am also a correspondent for the daily in Croatia, Jutarnji List. My editor's office was unaware of this conference taking place, which means that your organizing committee of this conference has failed to do its job properly. What I should like to know is in what way the problem between the prosecutors and judges will be overcome. The very fact that I, as a traitor who spent 3 years in prison during Yugoslavia as an opponent to the then political system, I was later to become the critic of my fellow inmate, Tudjman. Yesterday I was at lunch with my ambassador, public prosecutor and president of the Supreme Court, not because they are my friends, but because the political situation in my country has changed. But it has changed only in the political elites and not among the citizens. For 90% of the citizens of the former Yugoslavia were still enemies of our respective peoples, Croats, Muslims, or that is to say Bosniaks and Serbs. I have the privilege of addressing you in Croatian today, and you have to listen to me because that's what the rules are. When will you try and speak the language that successor countries of the former Yugoslavia will understand, who don't speak English or French? They only speak and know their own languages. Thank you.
Very much. Well, there are 3 questions. Serge Bremets, the first was for you. Do you trust the local prosecutors to actually prosecute, for example, those who've committed perjury in this, and what follow-up is there for perjurers in national countries?
You will, of course, understand that I'm not going into concrete cases or incidents which have been mentioned. If we discover in the context of our investigations or trials that crimes have been committed filing under the jurisdiction of the local authorities, of course we are in contact with our colleagues, authorities there, same in terms of witness protection issues or other issues which are relevant. We are transmitting this information to our colleagues. We're in contact on these issues. And then it's up to the local authorities to investigate those issues. But as I said, we are not the controller of the local authorities. We are in a regular contact, and as I said, in terms of cooperation, there are important improvements, but it's not our role, and we don't have the capacity to follow on individual cases which are ongoing locally.
I think the questioner wanted to ask, what gives you confidence then that there will be prosecutions?
You know, don't get me wrong, I'm for sure not saying that everything is perfect. We spoke about a number of legal obstacles, and it's of course clear that not all investigators and all persons working in the law enforcement community are perhaps today at the necessary standard we would like them to be, or my local colleagues want them to be. So to say things are perfect, for sure not. What I can say after now being in this function for the last 2 years, having regular contacts with our colleagues, and I'm mainly speaking about the war crimes prosecutors and chief prosecutors, that I absolutely trust in their commitment to address issues and to change the mindset of people there where necessary. We have regular meetings with colleagues. There are a number of initiatives, as I said, financed by the European Union, to have common databases, to have a common approach, to make sure and to try as much as possible to reduce the impunity gap, to make sure that one cannot escape investigation by only going a few kilometers to the neighbor country. Again, not saying it is perfect, but I think there is a commitment from the authorities to change things.
Mm-hmm. President Robinson, I think the second question was directed to you as to when the UN was going to shut you down. Turn off your mic.
Yes, I would have to be able to look in the future to answer that question with precision. But what I can say is that in the last report that I made to the Security Council, I outlined a program of work for the Tribunal, which would see the last appeal being Karadzic, ending in June or July 2013. Since that time, we would have to make an adjustment because the trial, as you know, was postponed for 5 months. So we are now at February 2014. But as to what the Security Council itself has done, and I'm very glad to see the chairman of the Security Council working group here, because he will get a feel of the issues in a way that he would not being in New York. So I'm very glad that he's here. But we expect that the Security Council, in the extended session of which will take place in March, will extend the mandate of the judges to the end of 2011. When that happens, when that time comes, the tribunal will have to go back to the Security Council to seek a further extension.
Mm-hmm. And the third question from the gentleman from Croatia, I think, was really one of how do you get it down to the grassroots? You may have changed perceptions among the elite, but at grassroots level, they're still shouting Slobo the hero, as they did at his funeral. John Hocking, do you have a view on that?
Yes, thank you. And having our material, our documents, our proceedings in BCS is obviously such a fundamental and critical issue, and it's something that we have put a lot of resources into doing, and it's why we have this transcript project which will result in the translation into BCS of all of our transcripts. There was a question also about what residual mechanism would be in place for dealing with potential breaches of confidentiality orders. I think it was the first question perhaps. That is exactly one of the tasks that the residual mechanism will be dealing exactly with that if there has been a breach of one of the tribunals, one of the ICTY's protective measures, that residual mechanism will be able to tackle that and look at whether there has to be some form of contempt or other types of proceedings to deal with it.
Any other comments on the third question, the need to get the Tribunal's message down to the grassroots?
May I just endorse what the registrar just said? I think it is an indictment on the United Nations and on the Tribunal itself that when it was started, no provision was made for transcription into the languages of the region affected. I almost apologize. I apologize for that. But we are now setting that right. As you heard, we are being funded by the OSCE and ODIHR, and we are in the process of a transcription program which will put relevant parts of the trials into the languages of the region.
Jano.
Thank you very much. Just very quickly, I think that Mr. Zvonimir Čičak raised a real serious concern about this disconnect between the court here and the region. We were aware of that. So when we were going about this project of transferring the legacy, of transferring the knowledge, we went first to the region. We conducted a large number of interviews. We asked people, what do you want? What do you need? Because this is not about transferring something to an empty space. The courts were already dealing with these issues in the region. And as of 2005, OSCE was asked on behalf of the ICTY to monitor how these trials are being handled by the judiciary and others in the region. So this experience all contributed to what we have now, this project in the making, that we will base the transfer on the needs of the players in the area. But let me say one more thing. You're right, there also has to be something done by the players in the region. There has to be finally, ultimately, universal recognition everywhere that war crimes were perpetrated, and the perpetrators have to be brought to justice. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions, or indeed both? For there, and there. I'll go that way. So 3 over there and 1 here.
Thank you very much. Vesna Deršić, human rights activist. I will also put a question concerning who will ensure that the investigative organs and judiciary in the region will continue their work. I think that human rights organizations and media will play a crucial role in that. And what worries me is that media are not represented here. The media were not informed about this conference because the critical public is who will ensure the continuation of investigations. 703 crimes were reported in Croatia, out of which 402 are at the investigative stage, which means that it is very important that the public pressure the prosecutor's office and the police to ensure that the pre-trial phase is completed as fast as possible. What concerns me is that the membership in the European Union is not a guarantee for that, because in Slovenia, the EU membership meant a near death for human rights organizations. These human rights organizations that are still active in Slovenia, there's just one, Mirovni Inštitut Javnosti. And what I'm wondering, and what is missing in this strategy, is what will be done and how will you work with young journalists? How will you ensure that on the one hand, human rights organizations can follow what is taking place in the pre-trial investigative phase of cases, and that on the other hand, journalists pressure